one of the things that we really work hard with Jason's heart is housing. That is a big barrier for folks that are coming out of substance use, behavioral health, but looking to further support folks that come through either our apprenticeship or other programs in our city. I think having you all on is super important because those folks, as they re-enter our workforce and our society and our city and whatnot, they're going to be looking for permanent housing options. This is Matt with Jason's Heart Podcast, and I have an awesome guest here with NeighborWorks. So I'm going to let you kind of introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about NeighborWorks.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Rachael Surmick, I'm the Chief Operating Officer here with NeighborWorks Lincoln. We are a nonprofit organization with a mission to improve lives by creating affordable housing opportunities and strengthening neighborhoods.
Awesome.
So we do that in 3 different ways. We have our real estate program, our home ownership program, and our community building program.
Yep.
Within our real estate development portfolio, we are actively working to increase Lincoln's supply of affordable housing. So we are a developer. We are out there. We are building new construction projects. We are doing an acquisition rehab strategy where we're acquiring properties that need a little bit more. They need a little bit more in order to get them back to the level of quality and safety that we would want our buyers buying them at. And we're really just working to create more affordable housing opportunities through that lens. Within our home ownership program, that's probably what most people know us for. We're a HUD-approved housing counseling agency. And in that effort, we provide a homebuyer education curriculum that educates anywhere between 250 and 300 individuals throughout the city on sustainable home ownership. We're talking about budget, we're talking about credit, we're talking about what the home ownership process looks like, and then also specifically helping folks understand what our specific program looks like. So we do provide down payment assistance, closing cost assistance, and recognizing that the price point of what most of our buyers can find on the existing market needs a little bit of rehab. We also provide rehab funds. All of that is structured through the lens of a down payment assistance loan. It's not grant funds. Folks either have to pay back part of it or all of it depending on how long they stay in their home. And that's due upon resale.
Nice. I think one thing I was going to mention too, just to give everybody a little clarity, one of the things that we really work hard with Jason's heart is housing. That is a big barrier for folks that are coming out of substance use, behavioral health, but looking to further support folks that come through either our apprenticeship or other programs in our city. I think having you all on is super important because those folks, as they re-enter our workforce and our society and our city and whatnot, they're going to be looking for permanent housing options and finding that home ownership. And you and I were chatting earlier about and I don't know that, and it's probably important to say this, that home ownership is such a backbone of our economy. It's like everything. We were talking about it. It's like literally almost everything. So I'm a huge advocate for affordable housing, and it's great to have you share, because honestly, a lot of people don't know about the DPA, down payment assistance stuff.
And it's a significant amount of funds. And I mean, when we think through barriers to home ownership for low to moderate income residents, pulling together the funds for down payment assistance and closing costs really are one of the largest barriers. Just from a financial perspective, especially when we look how rents are escalating, there are folks who can afford a mortgage, but the barrier to saving up those funds is really what prevents them from entering the market.
That's a great point.
And then when we also look at what our market has from an inventory standpoint in terms of what's affordable from a mortgage standpoint,
Yep.
Those homes need rehab. I
Yeah.
mean, we are focused on making sure that our homeowners are buying homes that won't have any major systems issues in the first 5 years.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, we're not necessarily providing rehab for new counters. Like, we're not doing that at all.
Right.
Right. One of my colleagues has a saying. He's like, "We're okay with ugly."
Right.
But what we're not okay with is if your foundation is in disrepair, if your roof is in disrepair,
Right.
if your heating and your electrical and your major systems are not up to snuff.
Yeah.
That impacts safety outcomes, that impacts health outcomes, but also financial outcomes for those individuals who buy those homes.
Yeah.
So that's why we intentionally include a scope of rehab with most of our down payment assistance programs. So much so that one of our team members, one of my colleagues, goes out and inspects all homes that one of our buyers are trying to buy, and he has to indicate whether or not it even fits within the scope of our program.
Yeah.
Like, if you're looking at a home that requires $50,000 of rehab, we just can't make that work.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's huge, having an advocate like you all in their corner to make sure, because I mean, as well as I do, that's a big stumbling block, are those big items like roof and furnace and things like that, safety.
And I mean, I would say we consider ourselves that additional advocate. We encourage every single person who goes through our program to get a real estate agent.
Sure.
To have a buyer's agent. That sole focus is to represent them.
Yep.
And then we just serve as that additional advocate to make sure that the home that they're buying fits in the scope of what we can reasonably allow within our program.
Yeah. That's cool. One thing too that I wanted to touch on is maybe having you talk about some of the new stuff, like what's the big thing right now? I mean, you see a lot of condos, you see a lot, which was like a weird thing for Lincoln, right? If you remember this, when you would talk about a condo loan, people were like, huh? What? Like, it's a new thing, but it's like really taking off. But I'm just curious, what's like the new thing going on with housing?
So I don't know about the new thing going on with housing across the market, but I can talk about what we're doing that's new and exciting.
Yep.
So we are getting ready to launch our community land trust.
Cool.
So for folks who don't know, a community land trust is a mechanism that essentially creates permanent affordability. Yep. So the way that it's structured is, unlike traditional home ownership, you lease the land. Yep. So the way a community land trust is structured is that we maintain ownership of the land, and it's leased out to the buyer through a ground lease.
Nice.
And so that mechanism, that land lease, is what creates the permanent affordability.
Yep.
So the way our homes currently work when we do new construction is there's an affordability period attached to the down payment assistance loan.
Okay.
If you stay in that loan for 10 years, you either have to pay a portion of it back, but because you're buying a subsidized home, like we're subsidizing construction at almost $100,000 a unit.
Wow.
It costs us about $250,000, anywhere between $225,000 to $275,000 to build. We're generally selling around $175,000.
Wow, that's
so there's
huge.
Significant subsidy associated with new construction.
Yep.
And then what has been happening is that folks stay within the home for the 10-year period, or they recognize that they can sell for well above what they purchased it for.
Yep.
And they're able to then sell the home for market rate, and then all that effort, all that subsidy that was used to create this affordable unit has been lost.
Got it.
The land trust disrupts that. So the goal of the land trust is that because of that land lease mechanism, it dictates that resale of the property has to be to another buyer at a similar economic situation as that initial buyer was when they purchased the home.
Got it.
So if you're at 80% of area median income, which is where we traditionally work, you have to sell that home to another 80% area median income buyer.
Got it.
And so that home then consistently stays in Lincoln's affordable housing inventory rather than being lost to market rate.
Got it. Right. So it's not as subjected to like market forces with appreciation, things like that.
So I don't want to create this idea that the buyer of a land trust unit doesn't see any appreciation or any increase in equity, because they absolutely do. And that increase in equity, that appreciation, is one of the biggest tools for generating wealth, especially for low to moderate income residents in our community. I mean, home ownership is generally seen as that generator for disrupting generational poverty as well.
Totally. Couldn't agree more.
And so the land trust has been a well-documented tool. It exists in other cities across the country. It's been in use for decades in some of those communities. So there's a really large body of research that we have to rely on. And that demonstrates that buyers on average see about $14,000 in appreciation and equity throughout the time that they're in that land trust. Thinking that it's not designed to be it's not designed to be a forever home. Our CEO has this tagline. He likes to say that we're trying to make the starter home cool again. And so that's really part of it. It's to create churn in the market. So folks purchase a community land trust home. It's kind of like a third option between subsidized versus market rate. You have the land trust in the middle. They stay there for 5 to 7 years. They see some appreciation, some stability. And then most land trust homeowners go on to buy a home in the private market, a market rate unit. And so
that's awesome.
That's the goal, right?
That's huge.
That's the goal. And for folks, ideally folks buy a home on the market. They buy a market rate home. But if you can't do that, this is a really great option for you. And so at the end of this month, we're launching our first 4 land trust units with the goal that each year we're continuing to add more units to the land trust, creating more and more permanent affordability throughout Lincoln.
And when does that start, just so everyone knows? Like you said, coming up here at the end?
So we have 4 units that are in the process of completing construction. Buyers are already identified.
I'm sure.
And so those are ideally scheduled to close here at the end of August.
Wow, that is
not
amazing.
August, it's October.
Yes, October. Sorry.
Those are ideally scheduled to close at the end of October.
Don't forget October. No, you know what? I spent some time working in Colorado a year ago, and due to life circumstances with my wife, but nonetheless, it is insanity. I mean, they do have a few developments there that are under that same model, like the deed restricted property, and it's the houses would sell for $800,000 to $1 million. I mean, they're completely out of touch, but they keep them probably around that 250 to 350 mark, which for there is like a home run. The problem is it's like a tenth of what's needed, right? So that's why I love the work you all are doing, because like there's a lot of foresight being put into it, because if we don't do this work or have a NeighborWorks doing this, we end up like some of these hyper markets like in the mountains in Colorado and resort towns. It's a mechanism that I think they're now realizing how powerful it was, or it is, and had they started it 20 or 30 years ago, things would be much better.
So I think what Lincoln might have this kind of idea that our housing market isn't as bad as these other high view communities, you could say. But our market is incredibly not affordable. Like, let's be very honest about that. So I mean, we look at a handful of indicators as we're seeing what our market looks like, and one of those indicators is month supply of inventory, or MSI.
Yes, talk about that. That's awesome.
Yes. So the idea behind month supply of inventory is that if at any given point in time you're looking at MSI, it would be the measure of how long it would take homes to sell if no other homes entered the market. Existing MSI for Lincoln, for the most recent data we have, was at 0.9. So that means in less than a month, if no other existing homes on the market entered the market, they would all sell within a month, essentially.
Wow.
Now with new construction, that number looks a lot healthier. That number's at 5.3. And so to be honest, like between 4 and 6 is what you look for in terms of a healthy MSI. If you're 4 or lower, it's a seller's market. If you're 6 or higher, it's a buyer's market.
Got it.
But we can't look at those numbers as standalone. It's important to couple those numbers with what the average closing price on existing inventory and what the average closing price on new construction was. So with an MSI of 5.3, the average closing price was $435,000.
Wow.
That is not affordable.
Nope.
That's not affordable. So I mean, our new construction market is not building affordable housing.
Right.
There are folks who do have a focus on building affordable housing. I mean, NeighborWorks Lincoln is one.
Yep.
You know, we have other nonprofit partners that are working on doing this as well. And I mean, there are private developers that have a focus on this too. I don't want to say like it's all doom and gloom. No one's working on it.
Oh, no.
And there are really, really great partners here in Lincoln that are working to address the issue.
Yep.
But at the end of the day, we know that Lincoln faces a deficit of 17,000 units, more than 17,000 units by the year of 2030.
Wow.
And our city's affordable housing coordinated action plan tells us that.
Yeah. Oh my.
So then I said existing MSI was at 0.9.
Yeah.
The purchase price for that was still at $291,000.
That's pretty steep. Not horrible, probably, but probably not great.
It's not what a low to moderate income buyer can afford.
Yeah. What is that at now?
Yeah.
Do you know? Is it like 150, 160?
I mean, really, it depends. So the measures that we use for identifying low to moderate income households are generally up to 80% of area median income. Please don't ask me what that number is.
No, I have an idea. It's okay.
Yes.
I think it's like 53,000, something like that.
And it adjusts for number of folks in the household.
Yep,
So,
totally.
I mean, 80% for a household of one is very different than what 80% for a household of six is.
Correct.
Some of our programs will go as high as 120% of area median income because there's a gap in the market for that as well.
Sure.
There are gaps.
Yep,
And so
yep.
we're doing what we can to create opportunities. And so that's why we use our down payment assistance to coupled with the rehab loan for those units that are part of Lincoln's existing affordable inventory.
Yep.
Recognizing that Lincoln's existing affordable inventory has a quality problem we've identified. They need investments in basic systems.
Got it.
In order for it to be a quality home for our home buyers to buy.
Well, that makes sense. Yeah.
And then we're doing our new construction and our acquisition rehab as well to just work to increase that.
Man, I didn't realize it was that many units.
Yeah.
I'm like, that's a huge number.
And so then, I mean, so that's 17,500 units total across all income spectrums.
Yep.
Over half of that need to be affordable.
Yeah. Wow.
And so one of the strategies that we use within our new construction portfolio, recognizing that there might be a slight density issue here in Lincoln, is that often when we acquire infill lots, they can be larger lots, and often the unit that's on there has become so deteriorated it requires demolition.
Yep.
So we have an addition by subtraction approach. So we'll demolish the blighted structure, and where one unit stood, we'll often build a duplex, or we'll build 2 units. So we're increasing the inventory that way.
Sure. No, it makes a lot of sense. Do you guys do much, or are you kind of involved in like tiny house stuff? Like what's going on there? I'm just curious.
I wouldn't say tiny house, but one of the things that we are looking at doing is building smaller units.
Yeah.
Once again, with the idea that it's that starter home rather than the forever home.
Yep.
So that folks buy that unit, they stay in that unit for the average length of time a traditional first-time home buyer is in their unit, which is 5 to 7 years. And then as their family grows and hopefully their income situation both stabilizes and grows as well, they're able to then move into a larger home, a market rate home.
That's great. It's become a big popular thing that a lot of people talk about. I mean, there's obviously incredible options, in addition to that, but was just curious. I know that's kind of become a big thing that a lot of people ask about, so thought we'd mention that.
Yep, we're just looking to kind of tighten up what it is we're currently building.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So anything else that's going on that's big to talk about? I know we talked about kind of down payment assistance.
Yep.
I know you guys do a phenomenal job on the educational side, which I think is huge. Like, it's amazing, and it has to be there because none of it works, in my opinion, without that.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, it's the gateway to our program. No one can buy a new construction, no one can participate in DPA without going through their 8 hours of home buyer education, but then also meeting one-on-one with one of our HUD certified housing counselors. Everyone's financial situation is different.
Yeah.
And I think it's just such a value add before you start reaching out to lenders, before you start trying to think, well, what can I get pre-approved for? What can I get pre-qualified for? We pull credit. I mean, we're doing a pretty thorough review in order to make sure that folks are home buyer ready before they even hit the market.
That is a big deal. I mean, and it's such a value to anyone in the community looking at that, to have that understanding and that basic knowledge.
Yep. And so, I mean, we help about 60 people purchase their first home through our down payment assistance each year.
Wow, that's a huge number.
And then, I mean, on top of that, we're also doing about currently 5 to 10 new construction, but our goal really is to scale that work.
Yeah.
I would just say organizationally, we just came out of a strategic planning process, and we know how vital all of these different mechanisms and tools are to create a healthy housing market that meets all of the different housing needs that we find in our community. Because, I mean, there is a need for all forms of affordable housing.
There is.
We currently focus on affordable home ownership, but there is dignity in all forms of housing. And I think that's really important to acknowledge. And so we're really looking to scale that work over the next 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, and I'm always an advocate for, you know, if anyone's out there renting, like, trying to share all this knowledge, like, hey, there are a lot of opportunities out there for you as a first-time home buyer, which I think is still, you just can't have owned a home in the last 2 years. Is that still correct?
I think it's 3 years.
Is it 3?
Yeah, 3 years.
Because and a lot of people don't understand that either. Like, well, I owned a home 10 years ago. I'm like, that's okay. Like, you just go check it out. There's a lot available to you. And I was just talking with my wife, and her sister was talking about her rent just went up like $400 a month.
Yeah.
It's almost $2,000 a month for a little 2-bedroom. It's a duplex, but I mean, I'm like, wow, I don't think that's utilities either. No. I'm like, what? I'm like, you know what kind of house you could buy for $2,000 a month? It's significant. Not that you need to. But so I'm just always trying to share that information and get people talk to NeighborWorks. Go find out. You can register for the classes, get the info.
Yeah, the very first step is to submit an application, and folks can either do that online through our website, www.nwlincoln.org.
Yes.
Or you can just stop by our office at 2530 Q Street, and we have paper applications as well.
Yep, that's perfect. That's one thing I wanted to touch on is, I try to share anything you guys post, and you've got a tremendous group of folks doing a lot of hard work to make and maintain great affordable housing here. So, NW Lincoln.
nwlincoln.org.
Yep, I just want to make sure everybody hears that and follows you on social media or gets to that website and applies. Anything else that's coming up that we need to touch on quick?
No, I'm just thank you so much for having me with you today. This has been great.
Yeah, it's a huge honor for us to have you all here, and like I said, I am a huge advocate for preservation of home ownership and promoting affordable housing. I mean, it's great for our city and our state to do that, but also like our folks potentially that are in our apprenticeship program and helping them understand what's available. And we have a great group of nonprofits here in Lincoln that work across the spectrum, from behavioral to housing to all of it. And we're so fortunate. So thank you very much, and get with NeighborWorks Lincoln, get educated, and start asking questions. You can also call me. I can also, or hit us up. I will definitely get you in touch with NeighborWorks, and we'll get you set up. So thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah.